Just went and saw Renfield, the new movie with Nicolas Cage as Dracula and Nicholas Holt, who was Beast in the X-Men movies, as Renfield, and then Awkwafina, who I did not know was in this, as Rebecca. The movie was alright. Everything without Awkwafina was good and fun action, and everything with her I just could not get into. It's a pretty straightforward movie. Renfield gets people for Dracula to feed on, and he's tired of it, and the whole movie is framed as an abusive relationship. And this is pretty open. They say it in the first scene of the movie. And he's at a group meeting for people who are in abusive relationships. So that's like the framing of the movie. Decent. The action was fun, super over the top. Nicolas Cage was very Nicolas Cagey as Dracula. I actually thought he would be in it more. I mean, he's in a big part of it, and he's the main villain, obviously, but I thought he'd have a lot more screen time, I guess. Awkwafina was in the B plot. So the B plot was her as a cop. They're in New Orleans. Literally every cop in the police department is corrupt except for her. And there's this gang called the Lobos who killed her dad. And she is out for revenge. And her sister is in the FBI. And her sister tells her that she needs to put aside personal revenge. Otherwise, she's not going to actually get justice. And this thread is never really explored, never closed, and never proven to be right. So that's pretty much it for her plot line. Her and Renfield are kind of in love with each other. They don't explicitly say it, but it's implied the whole time. So yeah, let's get into the plot synopsis. Renfield is in this therapy group, and what he's doing is talking to victims of abusers and then using that to go get the abusers to feed to Dracula. And what we see in the beginning is that Dracula feeds on people and he looks essentially human except with sharp teeth. And then he gets in these fights with vampire hunters and he gets caught in sunlight and shit and he looks terrible. So then he needs to feed on people to get back to full health, which essentially just means looking like Nicolas Cage as a vampire. So Renfield goes to get these abusers from his first meeting, and a hitman shows up. So the whole thing ends up being kind of a mess. And he takes them back to Dracula. Dracula's pissed because he said he needs more pure people, not corrupt people. So he wants nuns, cheerleaders, whatever, pure people to help him feed. And this is when Awkwafina catches this Lobo guy who is essentially like the second in command of a gang, but apparently he's dumb enough to ride around into a DUI checkpoint with a front seat full of like 50 pounds of cocaine. Not sure what that's about. So she chases him. His lawyers come in. He gets off. And that's kind of what you get is it's just openly corrupt cops. So she goes out to dinner with her partner. Renfield happens to be there looking for innocent people. And the Lobos show up to execute her in the middle of a restaurant. The guy, Teddy, who's the gang guy, Teddy Lobo, kind of panics because I guess he's never actually killed anybody. He's kind of a loser the whole movie. So he's not a very threatening or effective antagonist for Awkwafina's plotline. Anyway, everything freaks out. He's going to shoot her. Renfield saves her and then kills a bunch of these gang guys. Awkwafina kills some. And still no one gets arrested because literally the entire city is corrupt, which I think is pretty ridiculous, but whatever. So Renfield uses this therapy from these groups and he tries to move on, get out of his abusive relationship with Nicolas Cage, Dracula. Rebecca, or Awkwafina, has her sister run the pen that he used to stab these drug dealer guys. And she figures out that he's like 100 years old and maybe the biggest serial killer of all time. She's after him because of that, obviously. And then the Lobos gang is after him because they went to go to his place, which is Dracula's nest or whatever, at an abandoned hospital. And Dracula kills all of them. Nicolas Cage is pissed off that Renfield has tried to abandon him. He goes and kills Renfield's entire therapy group. Awkwafina shows up and thinks that Renfield did it. So she goes to arrest him, and her partner, who's corrupt just like all of them, calls in all the cops. And literally the cops and gang show up together to get Awkwafina. Well, to get Awkwafina to hand over Renfield. And it's just ridiculous. Like, corruption that openly and to that extent, but whatever. So she runs away. They end up at his apartment. He tries to explain. The gang and cops show up. They fight their way out. They go over to the Lobos headquarters because they took Awkwafina's sister. They get into a fight with the gang and Dracula because the Lobos gang, when they went to his nest, Teddy made a deal with Dracula because Dracula wants to take over the whole world for some reason suddenly after 500 years. So Dracula goes to make a deal with Teddy's mom because Teddy's not in charge of shit. So they have a big fight. Awkwafina and Renfield kill Dracula. They kill the whole gang. The gang leader, Teddy's mom, gets arrested finally, which I'm not sure how that happened because they've shown over and over that literally every cop is corrupt. Like, even one of the cops gets beheaded in their house and no one gives a shit. But whatever, I guess. So yeah, happy ending. Awkwafina calls Renfield a hero. He gets out of his relationship with Dracula. Huzzah. Overall, I'd say it's mediocre. A lot of the stuff doesn't make sense. Awkwafina, I've never seen her in anything. She cannot act. She's not funny. She's not charismatic. She's kind of dumpy looking, so you don't believe any of the action scenes with her involved at all. She's not attractive. I don't know how she got casted, honestly, but whatever. Like, her entire part of the movie I thought was just lame. All the stuff with Renfield and Nicolas Cage was fun. That's all the stuff that was, being in a abusive relationship or a one-sided relationship. You got the cool action scenes, like he throws a dinner saucer and cuts a guy's arms off. He punches a guy's head off. It's super over the top. When him and Awkwafina fight their way out of the apartment, it's pretty funny. He rips this dude's arms off, and he's like beating the shit out of these guys with the arms that he ripped off. And then he throws them like spears at a couple guys in the chest. And it's all like absurd, but it's fun. So it's a really strange movie. It kind of seems like they had an idea for just the Renfield and Dracula part, but then they were like, oh shit, we only have like 45 minutes of screen time. So then they went back and added the Awkwafina plot line and tried to tie them together. Because this movie was barely an hour and a half, if even that. It might have been like an hour and 20 minutes. And there's some decent jokes, but some of the stuff just makes no sense. Like, Awkwafina refers to him as a hero repeatedly after knowing that he ditched his wife and child to, like, in a quest for power to join Dracula, and then has been feeding people to Dracula for 100 years. And like, yeah, I guess at this point the relationship is abusive or however you want to frame it, but it doesn't change what he's fucking done. And it certainly doesn't justify the word hero. Like, really what they probably should have done is have him sacrifice himself at the end to kill Dracula and get some kind of closure. And instead, him and Awkwafina catch Dracula in a protection circle, which we see at the beginning of the movie, which is fine. And then he takes Dracula's blood, which has healing powers, and they heal the sister who was a hostage, and he heals all the people with the group therapy thing that Dracula attacked. So it's a generally happy ending, I guess. And then Dracula ends up as like tortured and beaten and cut up into ice cubes that are cement blocks, and they dump him in a sewer. I don't know, maybe they were hoping for a sequel if it does well enough, which I'm assuming not since everyone's busy seeing Mario. But yeah, just that basic morality of calling him a hero when he's essentially been an asshole for a century and killed presumably dozens or hundreds of people. I mean, in this movie alone, we see him kill like probably 30 or 40. So I would guess hundreds. And then, I thought the idea was good of having this kind of framing of something absurd like Dracula and his minion as an abusive couple, but there's just not much they did with it. And then we also get this whole thing where I don't know why we can't just have decent bad guys. But the guy who plays Teddy Lobo is essentially framed as like a bitch the entire movie. Like he literally says, "Call my mom" repeatedly throughout the movie. And he's never actually killed anybody, which comes up in the restaurant scene. And that just seems like typical Hollywood trying to slip in their bullshit to me. Like you got the effeminate loser guy, not effeminate, but he's just weak. You've got the entire police department's corrupt. I don't know. You've got Awkwafina, who, without looking, I'm assuming she's like 5'5" and 150 pounds, beating up these 6'2" and 300-pound guys. Just typical Hollywood shit. But the movie was mostly fun. They kind of got away from the humor aspect though after the first half, and it just takes on more of a serious tone with over the top action, I guess. Overall, if you're not busy, it's worth it to go see. I'd say it's probably a 5 out of 10. Like the stuff with Renfield is worth seeing. The stuff with Awkwafina, I would use that as time to go to the bathroom if you need a bathroom break in an hour and 20-minute movie. But yeah, that's it for me on this one. Thanks. See ya.